Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. What does reconciliation mean for Canada, First Nations, and for all of us as citizens and residents of Canada and the provinces there within? Does it mean that we should be working together to learn the truth? Does it mean that by ways of healing that we change the stories and learn what the truth is? Well, one of the things that it does actually mean is that there has to be real change to stop our government from being able to steal children away from people, to be able to allow people to learn, our children to learn their cultures and learn what it means to live in harmony with each other and our land. And in Saskatchewan today, there was a step taken towards that. A step taken towards healing the Cowessess First Nation and their people. Justin Trudeau and the Premier of Saskatchewan, as well as the Chief of the Cowessess First Nations, signed an agreement to help heal what happened at residential schools, to help bring all of us together as people. So let's listen to what actually happened. It happened in a powwow format, and Justin Trudeau and the people in Saskatchewan exchanged presents so that they understand the healing that needs to be to happen. The people of the Cowessess First Nations handed the Premier and the Prime Minister warrior sticks to show that we are all in this battle to eliminate discrimination, to eliminate racism from all systems, and to make Canada a country of equality.
Our local host chief, ladies and gentlemen, also a chicken dancer extraordinaire, Chief Cowessess Dillon.
Nanaskaman. Tapway Poko Mio Kisagaw. It's a beautiful day today. Ogamao Cadmus Natisi Kasu. Nitugama Kaniwin Cowessess is Squingwinik. My name is Chief Cadmus Delorme, and I'm a proud Cowessess citizen. I welcome our guests, Prime Minister Trudeau, Premier Moe, and all friends and family of Cowessess First Nation. At one time, before treaty, our ancestors roamed this land. There was no children in care. There was no unemployment. Everybody had a role. Everybody had a duty, and everybody had a purpose. At the time of treaty, Cowessess First Nation, this is what we envisioned was the following. 2 canoes going down the river. The Crown, which today represents our Prime Minister and our Premier, and the Cowessess First Nation canoe, side by side. And we were supposed to flow down this river together, every generation exchanging a child to know the ideology in that canoe and then give those children back, so we always coincided. Unfortunately, today we inherited a history where that didn't happen. In our Cowessess canoe at one time was the Indian Act, which is still here today. At one time, the residential school was put in our canoe. At one time, the 60s scoop was put in our canoe. And our Cowessess citizens fought. Our leaders fought to make sure our kids could still dance today. Today, we all inherited that. Prime Minister Trudeau, Premier Mo, and all their team didn't create this. We all inherited this today. And because of that, we have a little bit of loss of control, a little bit of loss of language, a little bit of loss of governance, a little bit of loss of our social and even our individual lives. One of the major things that happened is what you call vertical lineage passed down. If residential school, 60s scoop, Indian Act weren't here, Kokum would have passed down to mom. Mom would have passed down to daughter. Daughter would have passed down to granddaughter, as it should have been. But because of 4 generations of residential school, it became horizontal. Kokum had to stand beside her cousin to survive. Mom had to stand beside her sister and cousin to survive. And today, that lineage is coming back. That vertical lineage, one day at a time. And we are gaining control. Because of the federal government investing with Cowessess, we now farm our lands again. Because Premier Mo and the government of Saskatchewan worked with Cowessess for renewable energy, we're about to build a 10 megawatt solar field. We got turbines. We are gaining strength one day at a time. But as we move forward, we got a lot of healing to do. I asked 3 friends, family, that are sitting beside us. Rob, give us a wave. Kevin, give us a wave. Nicole, give us a wave. These are proud Cowessess citizens. And at one time, they were in the system. And we didn't find them. Today, they came home. Nicole, Rob, and Kevin, I'm sorry, and you're home now. Today we give birth to a new horizon, Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge. Today is a historical day because we never gave up our sovereignty to our children. And today, with the Prime Minister of Canada and the Premier of Saskatchewan, we are going to sign a coordination agreement. And what that means is Prime Minister Trudeau stands beside Cowessess and invests in us as we heal at our pace. Premier Mo stands beside us as Cowessess First Nation and invests at our pace as we grow. And the end goal is one day there will be no children in care. I'm 39 years old. I hope that happens in my lifetime. But Cowessess, we have a lot of work to do. And every day we will roll up our sleeves to make sure that every child, when we call them home, that they know where home is, and that is Cowessess First Nation, and that they will dance, they will get their education, and they will walk with their chin up and be a proud Cowessess citizen. Nanaskamun, thank you very much.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me the honor and pleasure to introduce also a very young leader, also an individual, no stranger to Canada. His spirit name is one who tries hard. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him to the podium. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Miigwech, Chief Delorme, for inviting me to your community. Kikinaskamutin. You know, I know there's a lot of people here who've had the privilege of seeing your chicken dance. I wish I had been there. But I know that everybody here is incredibly grateful that you are here, not as a dancer, but as a chief. We are lucky to have you as such a strong chief. Thank you all for your welcome back here at Cowessess. I was here 6 or 7 years ago before I became Prime Minister, and I have wonderful memories of getting to know Cadmus back then and getting to know this community a little bit. So it is truly an honor to be here on this historic moment. I'm very glad we're joined by my friend Premier Mo. It's good to have you here. It's important that we be here as partners. As a country and as a government, we've been reminded over the past few weeks that the path to reconciliation means recognizing past wrongs and working to do better. It is shameful that here in Cowessess and across the country, children died because of the policy of residential schools. Later today, I'll be visiting the site of unmarked graves to pay my respects and sitting down with many of you to hear your stories as survivors. Canada must acknowledge the truth. But we must also understand the truth. Even as Canadians from coast to coast to coast are shaking their heads and feeling guilty and terrible about the shameful past that we are coming to grips with as a nation. It is something that communities like here in Cowessess have known for years, decades, generations. The harm done by residential schools, the broken intergenerational links, the legacy of intergenerational trauma that continues. But even as non-Indigenous Canadians reflect on the history of residential schools, they must also reflect on the fact that at the same time residential schools were teaching Indigenous children that they had no worth, had no value, that their culture had no worth or value, that their languages didn't matter, that their traditions were irrelevant. At the same time as those harmful policies and teachings were inflicted upon generations of proud Indigenous people. In non-residential schools across the country, ordinary schools, so-called, where non-Indigenous Canadians went to, those same messages of the lack of value, in Indigenous knowledge, traditions, cultures, language. We're being spread. We're being taught. And as we talk about reconciliation today, it is not just about Indigenous peoples and governments who wronged them, although that's certainly a part of it. It's also about non-Indigenous Canadians understanding that not only what generations of Canadians were taught was wrong, but it was harmful. And it led to the creation of policies and institutions and ways of doing things in this country that didn't respect, acknowledge, or value the extraordinary strength and worth and contributions of Indigenous people, of Indigenous communities, of Indigenous knowledge. So we have not to just fix the wrongs of residential schools and the impacts on your communities, but the work of reconciliation is work that must be joined by all Canadians. Because in all our institutions, in all our ways of doing things, the echoes of those wrong-headed teachings resonate in ways that we are only beginning to come to grips with. And when I see and get to participate in such wonderful moments of community, of celebration, of strength, of culture, of depth, of language, of love, of respect and harmony for nature. These are things that mustn't just be there for strong Indigenous communities. They must be there for all Canadians to draw on. The work of reconciliation won't transform Indigenous communities alone and Indigenous people in Canada alone. The work of reconciliation must and will transform all of Canada and all Canadians. That's the work we have to do together. And of course, as we do that, it needs to start with children. That's the heartbreaking awakening that Canadians have had across the country with the discovery of these graves. That's why we're here today, to do better by this generation and future generations of children and families. Together with Cowessess First Nation and Saskatchewan, the Government of Canada is signing the first ever coordination agreement under the Act, respecting First Nations, Inuit, Métis children, youth, and families. That has been the work of reconciliation that communities like Cowessess has led on over the past many years. That we can come together to sign this today, mere weeks after the tragic discoveries, is because over the past years, leaders like Chief Cadmus and others have stepped up to help us co-create legislation that recognizes that child and family services that take kids from their communities and remove them from their cultures, from their languages, from their land, is not the path forward that we need to walk as a country. And that kids need to be kept by and protected by, supported by, and taught by their communities. So we co-developed legislation called C-92 that will ensure that as we move forward, kids get the support they need and the protection they need, driven by their own communities, in their own languages, in their cultures, that no kids finally will be removed from the communities that they are part of. That is the goal, and that is what we are signing the very first agreement all across the country to start today in Cowessess. Never again should kids be taken from their homes, families, and communities. The act we passed in June 2019 makes sure of that. To support this agreement, we're investing $38.7 million for the implementation of the Cowessess First Nation's Child and Family Services System. This is an important step forward. And at the end of the day, it'll mean fewer children and youth in care. And across the country, we are working with other First Nations to reach similar agreements. My commitment is this, that we will continue to work as a partner with all communities on what they need to keep their children safe and thriving. Lorsque les enfants des Premières Nations,
when children from First Nations, Inuit, and Métis grow up in their own communities, surrounded by their culture, the people who love them, they have better opportunities to flourish and to succeed. And I know that that is what we all wish for throughout Canada and for all children.
Chief Delorme graciously accepted a braid of sweetgrass in order of today's agreement, and as my pledge to work in partnership and unity with all groups to make this goal a reality. We will continue to walk the path of reconciliation and respond to the priorities of Indigenous people on child and family services reform. We will, every step of the way, be there as partners to focus on what's best for your children, for all of our children, because that's what they need. And that's what they deserve. Again, thank you, Cowessess, for welcoming me to your community for this really important occasion, not just for Cowessess, but for all of Canada. Miigwech.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to call up our next speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, he's no stranger to ranching and farming and understanding of the livelihood of Saskatchewan people, especially Saskatchewan First Nation. The farming abilities of our people and understanding of the land. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring them to the podium with a big round of applause. Our Premier, Scott Moe.
Thank you very much, Howie. I was a little concerned about how that introduction might go listening to your jokes here earlier today. But, welcome everyone. Prime Minister, welcome to Saskatchewan, to Cowessess. It's an honor to be with you here today. Cadmus, welcome and thank you for the passion that you bring to your words here today, but the passion that you bring to the words that you bring to people in this community, in this province, in this nation, each and every day. You're a true leader and a true friend. Thank you, Cadmus, for having us here today. To all the elders that we met with earlier, to all of those honored guests, I have a number of colleagues here today. We have the Honourable Don McMorris, we have Laurie Carr, we have Steve Bonk, who is the MLA for this area. Welcome. Welcome to everyone as we gather in the spirit of reconciliation to celebrate what is truly a historic partnership between three levels of government here at Cowessess. These have not been easy times. The last number of weeks in particular have not been easy times here in Cowessess. They have not been easy times in Saskatchewan or across Canada. I am here and pleased to be part of this agreement today in your community. I'm also here to ensure that this community of Cowessess and other communities across this province know that Saskatchewan people send their love, they send their prayers, and they send their gratitude to everyone in Cowessess. And I want you to know that as we walk through the next number of days, weeks, months, years, that we're going to do that together. We as Saskatchewan people will be with you every step of the way, regardless of where that road takes us. Your healing journey is our healing journey as well. As Chief Delorme had so eloquently put it, none of us living here today created the residential school system. None of us created the Indian Act. None of us that are here today. But all of us have a duty as we look forward and look ahead to work together to deal with the consequences of those decisions from generations ago. We have a duty, we have an obligation to build a brighter future for all of us. We can do that, and we can do that together. That's what brings us together here this afternoon. The desire to build a brighter future for this community, maybe not even for us, but for that next generation, for our children and for our grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we're very proud to be a part of this agreement today and the work and the lead up to this agreement here today. It is truly, as the Prime Minister said, a groundbreaking agreement that will give Cowessess control over child and family services that are delivered to your children, delivered to community members, wherever they live. It's an agreement that will ensure that the children of Cowessess are raised by families in their own community, their own culture, in accordance with your own traditions. Today is, yes, the culmination of many months of negotiations by a number of levels of government. Negotiations that were driven by your chief, Chief Cowessess Delorme, who was absolutely determined to see this agreement through here today and to see Cowessess exert its independence in this area. And thank you for your determination, Chief. Prime Minister, I also want to thank you, and I want to thank your colleagues for the passing of Bill C-92, the legislation that opened the door for us to have these negotiations and ultimately have this agreement, this celebration, to proceed forward together here today. Thank you, Prime Minister. I'm also very grateful as well to our provincial colleagues, my provincial colleagues that also worked on this agreement. What started with Paul Merriman, who has now been moved off to brighter pastures in the health portfolio. But to Laurie Carr, who has brought those negotiations together on behalf of the province. Thank you, Laurie, for your hard work and effort. And to all of the provincial officials, federal officials, and those here in Cowessess that worked to ensure that this could happen here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been through some trying days, as I mentioned, during the last few weeks. And there are difficult days ahead of us, no doubt, as we continue to deal with the legacy of residential schools in our nation. But today's announcement, I think we would all agree, is a ray of hope. It's a ray of hope for Cowessess, yes. It's a ray of hope for other Indigenous communities in Canada. It's a ray of hope for our province of Saskatchewan. And I would say that it is a ray of hope for our entire nation. And it's no surprise that that hope is originating right here in this community of Cowessess. This is a progressive community. It leads in so many other areas as well. The production of renewable energy, which we mentioned earlier. In farming, now farming 4,500 acres here in Cowessess. In tourism. In education. And now in the delivery of child and family services. Cowessess is most certainly a community that is on the move, working in partnership with the provincial and the federal government. And what's happening here is now has the opportunity to be replicated in other First Nations communities across the nation. Our Indigenous communities are a major tailwind for all of Canada, and they are helping in great ways make our nation strong. So let me close with this. A few years ago, Chief Delorme, he'd said his goal was to be able to look back on his life with pride at the ripe old age of 39 today. I think many of us would agree that we would all like to be in that position. Chief Delorme had set that goal by the time he was old and gray, and at 39 he most certainly is not. But at a time when he'd be old and gray, sitting at home, playing golf with a handicap, and if you've played golf with Chief Delorme, you know that his handicap isn't very high, but when he's old and gray, his handicap would be obviously much higher. He wanted to look back and he wanted to say, you know, our ancestors are very, very proud of what we're achieving here today. Well, I think when you look at what we're achieving at Cowessess, in the community of Cowessess today, I don't think you're going to have to wait for a higher handicap. I don't think you're going to have to wait until you're old and gray. I think that your ancestors are extremely proud of what you have achieved here today, Chief Cadmus DeLorme. I think they're proud of the entire community, and I think I can speak on behalf of everyone in this province when we are so very proud of the partnership that we have formulated over the last number of years and with the achievement that we see before us here today. Your ancestors are very proud, Chief, for a very good reason.
Let's give them a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to ask those ladies to bring those tables to the front. And the historic signing begin. Everything was rehearsed in 5 minutes. And we're good at that. Now that you're on Cowessess land, we don't want you to point like this. You point like that. I'm just teasing. We're going to ask our dancers to stand back here, make a nice big line right back here to signing for our chiefs and our dignitaries to come forward. For those ones that have the cameras, I want you to just stay where you are a little bit, I think, right? And you have the right cameras that are going to take the right pictures. They're just going to stand. They're going to stand. We want all our dancers to stand behind. We have the pen. I always wanted to say that. All right, we got cameras.
Get him do it right. Fresh.
Now, we have our gift exchange. We're going to have our gift exchange. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this gift exchange goes way back at the beginning of time. When the visitors first came, we gifted them with survival gifts. And that gift giving still goes on with different tribes and nations. And the Cowessess First Nation would like to present their visitors with gifts. I'm going to turn this microphone over to Chief if you want to say a few words.
Thank you, Howie. Thank you again, everybody. I want to start off with Premier Mo. Premier Mo, this was done by one of our most respected members in this community. We know him as the Sheriff, but we also know him as Malcolm Delorme. When our warriors go into battle, they have their warrior stick. And our battle together continues. We will get to our destination one day at a time. I also offer this. Every child at some point in their life should get a teddy bear. It's comfort. It's love. All of our teddy bears for our children will have a ribbon skirt or ribbon shirt on to remember who we are and where we come from. Thank you very much, Premier. Prime Minister Trudeau, your visit here today and the recent events is very uplifting. And I offer you this, a warrior stick with a dream catcher. That as we continue to be dreamers and believers on Cowessess, that you stand beside us and help us also get there one day at a time. You like that, eh? Yeah. I coordinated that one. I tried to get a green one, Premier, but we couldn't turn it around that fast. Prime Minister, I give you the same photo. That you hang it up somewhere, I hope, in offices that you attend daily, weekly, and that you look at them. And there are many other children out there that are waiting for many First Nations. And this picture is from us to you, that we're very grateful for what you have done with us. Nanaskaman, thank you.
Chief Delorme, Cadmus, this was made by a very prominent artist, and I don't have his name with me, but I believe he's known by all of you. The orange hands, the buffalo, dream capture, all this to indicate our thankfulness to you and this momentous occasion of us coming together to begin a new chapter in our partnership. Thank you. Premier Mo, Scott, it's a pleasure to present this as well. The orange for the residential schools, the buffalo, signs of strength, and the partnership that we have, federal and provincial governments, to continue to work and walk the right path of reconciliation together. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both the Prime Minister and Chief Delorme. Chief Delorme, there's an artist in Prince Albert, up in my neck of the woods, Treaty 6 territory. Gail Carlson is her name, and she's also done a sculpture on a portrait of the buffalo as well, which is also very symbolic of strength and symbolic of the land that we know here in Saskatchewan. So Gail Carlson is, as I said, up from my area of the province, just in Prince Albert, and we offer you this as a memento and a memory of the great day that we had here today. And likewise, Prime Minister, a memento from Gail Carlson in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, a memento of the wonderful day here today. And thank you so very much for being here, and thank you very much to the federal government and yourself for the effort to get here. The perseverance was from the Chief, Cadmus DeLorme, to see this through, but it didn't happen without the effort from the federal government. And thank you so very much for that. You know, if there's a positive out of COVID, it's the fact that we have been on the telephone weekly, bi-weekly, throughout the course of the last year. All of the premiers and the Prime Minister himself has made himself available, and there's relationships that have formed there between provincial and federal governments, and I can't help but that relationship likely helps when we come to work with communities across this nation, most notably in Cowessess here today. So thank you, Prime Minister, for being here today.
Check that table, see if there's anything for me. Holy cow. I don't know where that came from, Chief. I'm just... Yeah, there's some kindling. Hey, take a picture of this. There you go. I got some fire sticks happening. Thank you. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, the gift giving and all that, we'd like to also call our youth council, Mia Buckles.
Oh, my stick.
I might steal it on you. Hello, everybody. I want to move this down a little bit, sorry. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Mia Buckles. I am the chair of the Cowessess First Nation's Youth Council. A big welcome to our guests and thank you for being here. I just wanted to say a quick thank you for the opportunity to represent and speak for our youth. Now, I'm going to be completely transparent for a moment and say that I think a lot about my people and the horrors that we've endured for decades, centuries even. All the hurt, fear, and guilt that we feel and conceal from those around us, the effects these hardships have had on our ancestors and our present generations are undeniable and indescribable. In Saskatchewan, 86% of children in care are identified as First Nations. 86%. 150 of those children are from Cowessess, and it's their time to receive the opportunity to come home and heal with their families on their own land through a holistic approach. Cowessess is taking on a huge leadership role for our First Nations communities throughout Canada in the walk to lowering these numbers, which also plays a role in lowering incarceration numbers in First Nations. Intergenerational trauma is very real. I recognize it in my life and others' lives around me. It plays a huge role into why so many of our people end up in foster care, incarcerated, addicted, and uneducated. This is a beautiful new pathway opening to our children and their families. Our nation has worked extremely hard to create our own family and child services system and to obtain jurisdiction over the care of our children and families. I am so proud to say that I am from Cowessess First Nation today. After years of our children being taken and separated from their families, from their families, culture, and ultimately their senses of self, we are one step closer to breaking one of the many generational curses that bind us. With the start of our family and child services system, our children and families affected by intergenerational trauma and other struggles will have the opportunity to heal in every aspect, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I personally have a large disconnect from my culture. I found it really affected my sense of self. I do not know my language. I have minimum knowledge on ceremonies, our stories, and our way of life. Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge will work proactively to prevent children and families from going into care. They will be provided safe living and access to their culture. This is a huge first step that will lead the Indigenous people of Canada into a brighter future. Teaching our people our culture and what it truly means to be Indigenous, not the statistics, not the stereotypes, but us, a beautiful and powerful nation, who we always have been and always will be. We are the leaders in a long-fought battle for the rights and the comforts of our people. Soon after us, I hope other First Nations communities will follow in our footsteps and fight to gain the ability to care for and assist their families and children in need to a healthy and happy life. And to conclude, I just want to remind our beautiful people that we are strong, we are resilient. Our people may have been silenced, pushed to the side, and buried, but we will always come back stronger and louder than ever before. And with that, a big congratulations to Cowessess First Nation. We've earned it. Thank you, everybody.
That concludes my part. We're going to ask Buffalo Lodge to sing a victory song. We have songs. One's an honor song. One's a victory song. Today is a great victory, and I'll talk about that. Chief? Can I talk about that Eagle staff? That Eagle staff. It was told to me. I travel around different powwows, different communities, and I'm an Assiniboine, so I want to know things so I can tell other people. I asked about that Eagle staff, that curved stick. This one here. If you acknowledge this curved stick right here, oh, I hate to use this honor stick. You notice it's curved. Well, this Eagle staff used to lead us into battle. This one used to say, it's a good day today. But since working closely with the treaties and the government, all tribes throughout Canada, United States, they bent that lance, that spear. We will fight no more. That's what they told me. At the Battle of Little Bighorn, I went with tobacco to learn the meaning of it, because we see it all over. But I want to know. But I want to educate people. I want to tell you. We're working together with this spear. It used to be a spear, but we bent it. We're not going to fight no more. We want to work together. Story of the Eagle staff. With that, we're going to go to Buffalo Lodge for the victory song. We're going to ask you to please stand, please rise, and come and dance for a victory. It's our time.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you for supporting us with our sponsors. Please go to depictions.media for more information, and click on our contact link and let us know how we can help bring your story and help bring us to a better world. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.